The recreational deck of the Valthara hummed with the soft bioluminescence of Zinthari entertainment pods, casting ethereal blue-green patterns across the assembled crew. Commander Hazal of the 3rd Exploration Fleet watched the human with undisguised curiosity, her serpentine tail coiled beneath her as she observed from across the crystalline chamber. Denial sat cross-legged on the deck, completely absorbed in what appeared to be meditation. The human had been aboard their vessel for 3 standard cycles now, a rescued castaway from a derelict Earth transport, and he continued to mystify the crew with his peculiar behaviors. While other species required elaborate relaxation chambers or chemical enhancers to achieve mental equilibrium, the human simply sat. Still studying the primitive? Lieutenant Vex slithered up beside Hazal, his scales shifting to an amused amber hue. The science division believes his neural patterns are defective. No sentient should be able to achieve such mental stillness without technological assistance. Hazal's own scales flickered with interest rather than mockery. Perhaps that's what makes him remarkable rather than defective. The Zinthari had ruled 3 star systems for millennia, their advanced civilization built upon biotechnology and mental enhancement. They were apex predators who had evolved beyond the need for physical prowess, relying instead on their superior intellect and technological mastery. Humans, by comparison, seemed laughably primitive. No natural weaponry, no advanced biotechnology, no apparent psychic abilities, yet something about denial intrigued her. "I have an idea," Hazal announced, her scales shifting to a mischievous violet. "The humans have a saying about their physical limitations making them resourceful. Let's test that theory." Before Vex could object, Hazal glided across the deck with fluid grace. The other crew members paused their activities, sensing entertainment approaching. Zinthari were natural predators, and the sight of their commander stalking prey, even harmless prey, triggered instinctive interest. Denial's eyes remained closed, his breathing steady and deep. Hazal circled him once, twice, studying his posture. Then, with the casual dominance of an apex predator asserting superiority over lesser prey, she positioned herself directly over him and settled her lower body across his lap, her serpentine form effectively pinning him in place. The reaction she expected was immediate submission, perhaps fear, maybe even the amusing flailing that lesser species displayed when confronted with Zinthari superiority. The recreational deck fell silent as the crew waited for the entertainment to begin. What happened next would be discussed in xenobiology departments for decades to come. Denial's eyes snapped open, not with fear or surprise, but with something far more unsettling. His pupils contracted to pinpoints and every muscle in his body went rigid. But instead of the desperate struggling Hazal anticipated, he became absolutely terrifyingly still. "Hazal," he said quietly, his voice carrying an undertone she had never heard from any species before. It wasn't anger exactly, nor was it fear. It was something far more primal and infinitely more dangerous. "You need to move. Now." She laughed, a sound like crystalline bells. "Relax, human. This is simply a demonstration of natural hierarchy. Your species accepts dominance displays from superior." "I'm not other humans," Denial interrupted, and now his voice carried the weight of something vast and patient and utterly alien to Zinthari understanding. "I'm not going to submit, and I'm not going to run. So you have approximately 10 seconds to remove yourself before I demonstrate why my species didn't evolve natural weapons." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Hazal found herself studying the humans, face more carefully. His features hadn't changed, but something behind his eyes had awakened, something that made her predator instincts whisper warnings she had never needed to heed before. "We don't need natural weapons," Denial continued conversationally, "because we learned to make better ones. We don't have thick hide because we invented armor. We don't have venom because we developed chemistry. We don't have superior speed because we built vehicles that move faster than any living thing should. We don't have natural mental defenses because we learned to endure things that would shatter other minds entirely. His hands, which had been resting peacefully on his knees, shifted slightly. The movement was minimal, but Hazal suddenly became aware that those fingers could probably exert enough pressure to crack her reinforced scales. That this supposedly frail creature possessed a skeletal structure dense enough to serve as weapons, musculature compact enough to generate explosive force, and reflexes honed by millions of years of survival on a death world that had tried everything imaginable to kill his ancestors. The thing about humans, Denial said, and now there was something like amusement in his voice, is that we're persistence predators. We don't need to be the fastest or the strongest or the most heavily armed. We just need to be the most stubborn, the most adaptable, the most willing to sacrifice everything to achieve our objectives. Around the recreational deck, the assembled Zenthari were beginning to step backward. Their scales had shifted to warning colors, deep crimsons and nervous yellows. Some primitive part of their minds was finally recognizing what their intellect had missed. They weren't looking at prey. They were looking at something that had earned its place at the top of its own food chain through methods they couldn't comprehend. So I'll ask you again, Commander, Denial said, his voice never rising above conversational levels. Would you please remove yourself? Because the alternative is discovering exactly why humans don't need natural weapons, and I promise you that demonstration will be significantly less pleasant for everyone involved. Hazal found herself lifting away from the human before her conscious mind made the decision. Every instinct she possessed, instincts refined by millions of years of successful predation, was screaming at her to retreat from something far more dangerous than it appeared. As she settled back onto the deck, she watched Denial close his eyes and return to his meditation, as if nothing had happened. His breathing resumed its steady rhythm. His posture returned to perfect relaxation. But now Hazal understood what she was really observing. This wasn't a primitive creature achieving mental stillness through defective neural patterns. This was an apex predator so confident in its lethal capabilities that it could afford to appear completely vulnerable, secure in the knowledge that anything foolish enough to test that vulnerability would discover exactly why humanity had never needed to evolve natural weapons. The recreational deck remained silent for a long time after that, the assembled crew finally understanding why their new human crewmate never seemed concerned about being surrounded by beings who could theoretically tear him apart. He didn't need to be concerned. He was the most dangerous thing on the ship, and he was polite enough to let everyone else pretend otherwise, as long as they didn't push him too far.